11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. What a fight! I think the winner won it. Juan, the Hispanic causing panic, Lascano.
Welcome to HCP Aftermath. Cali X Boxing here, joined alongside D-Style Boxing as always. And D-Style, Feliz Navarrete.
Feliz
Navarrete.
Feliz
Navarrete.
Feliz
Navarrete.
Prospero año y felicidad.
Shout out to everybody.
To everyone.
Props to Navarrete. Hats off to him. Hats off to Valdez. And we're going to get to that fight.
And look, we haven't done this in a while, but like HCP of the week for sure. Navarrete all day.
I put the poll up there. Should I be allowed back on the bandwagon? I forsaked my boy Navarrete. After years, I forsaked him in the big fight and picked him to get knocked out. And look what happened. So guys like JC's not allowing me back on the bandwagon. Hopefully you guys come through in the poll and allow me back on the bandwagon. My guy Nando is voting yes. Manny, appreciate you. You're voting yes as well. So we'll get to that fight. No more seats. JC is not allowing me back on.
and shout out to Manny. He stood on his square, right? He guarded the paint like on the round table when everybody they were laughing at him. Okay, they were scolding him. Not me. I wasn't doing it. You know what I mean? But he was just he said that the chin would hold up. It did, right? The awkwardness would, and this is actually something I agreed with. I said, hey, do what got you to the dance, and that's exactly what he did. I just didn't think it was going to work, but it did.
Oh,
right?
It did. And we're going to talk about that. I have a lot of
Navarrete is
he's that
who
dude.
We thought he was.
He's that dude.
He is who we thought he was.
Now we
Valdez
need to see,
let him off the hook, bro.
By Floyd standards, now we need to see Navarrete versus Crawford.
I mean, if Navarrete doesn't fight Usyk by next year, he's ducking. Yeah, I'm saying.
The same way I laughed at JC. And I told JC on YouTube before the fight, I said, when Navarrete falls, you fall with him. And as soon as Navarrete won on the scorecards, I got a YouTube message from JC, and it says, so you were saying?
He waited till the scorecard? Bro, I knew that shit was over. Oh, we're going to talk about it, but.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. First, I want to get to the 118 fight. Let's start off with that. Emmanuel Rodriguez won 120 to 105 on every scorecard against Melvin Lopez. Just a phenomenal performance. What it highlights to me is how special of a fighter Inoue is, because now you have an Emmanuel Rodriguez who won this fight decisively on all scorecards and is a titleist at 118. And I'll talk about the other titleists there, but he's beaten Gary Antonio Russell. He beat Jason Maloney. He beat Paul Butler. He's run through this division, but Inoue runs through him in 2 rounds. So it highlights how dominant, because one thing that bothers me and it bothers you is the people who say, oh, Inoue's resume isn't that strong. Who's he beat? Well, I'm watching Emmanuel Rodriguez fight on Saturday night on Showtime, and I'm like, that's a hell of a fighter right there. And Inoue ran through him like he was nothing. Nothing. What do you think about Emmanuel Rodriguez, and how does it really highlight how Inoue in his greatness? Do you agree with that?
Look, here's the thing about Emmanuel Rodriguez. It wasn't the night of the Emmanuels though. Like if your name was Emmanuel, you were a winner. You know what I mean? It was Emmanuel Day, the Emmanuels. First of all, I thought he won every round, right?
Yeah.
Tough guy he was fighting, but he was just outgunned. Just too fast. The jabs on point. Look, he doesn't do anything wrong. This is the thing. I don't have any critique like, oh, he should do this better, or he just does everything right. Like he's a very textbook, fundamentally sound boxer with good speed. The one thing he doesn't have, it's just he doesn't have power like that, but that's okay, right? And he doesn't throw as much as I would like him to throw, but it's working for him. Like it's hard to criticize him when it's working, right? Maybe he'll throw more depending on the opponent, but he's on point. The reflexes are solid. He's missing something. I don't know what it is. There's something special fighters have. There's always that little extra that he's missing, right? But he could still be a fighter that dominates his division. I think I would favor him against everybody right now at 118. That's including Maloney, everybody, right? Remember, Russell was the guy that I was hearing channels on here say is going to be the guy that Inoue is ducking and is going to beat Inoue. Anyone who ever watched those two fight, at least last year, wouldn't have said something like that. But Emmanuel is going to be one of those wins that ages like fine wine for Inoue.
And as you brought up, we talked about this off air as well. That was a fight when Inoue fought Rodriguez that it was a trendy pick.
Pick Rodriguez. Like I picked Inoue, but I thought it was going to be a tough fight. Right, I was wrong, and people got to remember this is like a fighter's great when people are very dismissive of things you wouldn't usually be dismissive about. You don't just go from 108 to 118 and just dominate 118. Like that's not a traditional thing that happens, right? That's like talking about. Imagine like Edwards talking about it. Sonny Edwards going to 130 pounds and dominating. Like it's just not something you're going to be talking about right now. But that's what Inoue was doing. So people felt like a lot of the size factor, the guys being bigger, were going to catch up to Inoue a little bit. People were wrong, including myself. I could admit that, right? But yes, a lot of great boxing minds here on the YTBC favored Emmanuel to win that fight against Inoue. And it wasn't like because they didn't like Inoue or they just felt it was a bad style matchup. And then Inoue went out there and just made a lot of people look stupid, including myself.
Man, that nigga that Japanese guy was in shape.
He was in shape, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he was in great shape.
He was in shape against Rodriguez. Appreciate this, Manny. Appreciate it. And Manny should be doing his victory tour right now. He told everybody, and he stood on his box. He stood on his own.
He told everybody.
He told everyone. And guess what? He was right. He was right.
We were like, we were. Have you seen a movie? What's that movie where Will Smith's the only dude still alive with his dog, and there's all these like zombies?
Yeah, I forgot.
I Legend, right? You know when he has the cure, he's like, "I got the cure," and then the zombies like breaking the glass, like you know what I mean? He was trying to tell us like, Navarrete's gonna win. We were like, no, Valdez, sir, Valdez. Like he tried to tell us. He tried. Like, you know what I mean? He tried. He did everything. He said in English and in Spanish.
We did not
in
listen.
Japonés and everything. He said in like 4 languages.
We did not listen. And
we were just about his zombies. We're like, no, he's going to lunge in. He's going to feel the power. Like, he didn't feel shit.
He's going to get caught with those hellacious hooks. And he did, and he walked right through them. And we'll get to that. Look, Anthony Joshua. What'd you think about him in a Helenius fight? Is he who he is at this point? What did you think of his performance? I think anytime a big name fighter fights, you get on both sides, right? Like That's when I
Yeah.
know I need to stay off of Twitter because I'm just clearly using sarcasm in some tweets, and then I have it coming from both
Yeah.
sides. It's like, bro, relax.
Right.
It's just the fight. I thought he looked okay. I thought he looked fine. Great knockout, and he did what he had to do to get to the next fight. Right? It is what it is at this point. I want to see the Wilder fight. Let's get to the Wilder fight, hopefully in January. What would you think about the performance?
Let me be very, very frank, guys. I honestly believe this. Like, I actually like the performance. I was very surprised at the reactions I saw on Twitter or X, right? Sponsor of ATPX. You know what I mean? We have a whole app sponsoring us. It's great. And then I'm going to call it Twitter, guys. Sorry. But and then in the YTBC, bro, I'm very surprised. You know, like people are being look, and I'm gonna give my analysis, but I just think people are being overcritical. It's my opinion. Here's what I saw, like throughout the fight. I did not see a gun shy, scared to throw, hesitant AJ. That's not what I saw. I know a lot of people are saying that's what they saw. But I didn't. I saw a patient AJ. I saw him very patient. He was following the instructions of his trainer to keep, to keep his guard up. That's how he likes his fighters to fight. I think they're working on him having a habit of having the guard up. We could debate whether or not it's going to be effective or not, especially with future opponents. But he's following the instructions of Derek James. And I saw this. What I saw in real time. I was tweeting Joe Habib. And I said, look, I like the jab to the body. I think he's wearing him down. Yes, Helenius hit him with jabs. He did. So I'm not saying it was a perfect performance, but he very rarely did Helenius hit him with consecutive shots. Very rarely did AJ throw and was in a very bad, vulnerable position. Never was he in danger in his fight. Never was he in trouble. His lip was busted. You could bust a lip. It's a very delicate part of the like. I remember when Cotto's lip was busted against Alfonso Gomez. A busted lip doesn't tell me anything. The eyes might be a little more concerning, but again, it was from the jabs that Helenius was landing, and credit to Helenius, but this was a last minute replacement. He was going to fight a 6'4" guy, got replaced with a 6'7" guy, a longer guy, a different style. It was all last minute, and I think he performed well. And I was tweeting, babe, look, he's hurting him to the body. He's wearing him down. Helenius has started to huff and puff. He's ready to go. Like, I felt like he warmed down, then he took him out late. Or not even late, mid-rounds. And I feel like people are acting like he was, like, super scared and didn't want to throw. And, I just think, I'm not saying he's the same AJ before the Ruiz fight, right? But you got to remember, the reason he got hurt in the Ruiz fight was because he got too happy when he hurt a guy. He would land a punch and he would throw a little too much with the combinations. I think he's doing it just about right. I think he found a sweet spot. It worked. I think too many people are comparing his performance against Helenius to Wilder's performance with Helenius. They're doing too much comparing. I honestly believe this, bro. If Helenius fought Fury, he would land a jab on Fury too. Whoever he fights, he will land that jab. I thought it was good. I'm not going to give the guy an A or an A plus. I'm not even going to give him a B plus. B to B minus is what I give Anthony Joshua. He looked a lot better than in the Franklin fight. He wore him down. I have the real time. I could show you the screenshots when I texted Joe Habib. He's wearing him down to the body. He looks tired. I even said before the knockout, he's ready to go. He's going to knock him out. And that's exactly what happened. I'm just saying, I saw the knockout coming by like round 3. He was setting it up with a jab. I don't know if that's a trend now. Everyone's doing it now. Jab right upstairs or whatever, but that's what he was working on. You know what I mean? Maybe Derek James saw maybe he saw his boy Spence got hit with it. It was like, you know what? I like that move. I don't know, but still. I know people. I know I'm in the minority in this, Calix. I know that most people think he looked like trash. But I'm gonna tell you what it is. A lot of you guys out there have been talking a lot of shit about Deontay Wilder for years, and you're softening the blow. That's what you're doing, right?
Mhm.
You're softening the blow because you know, okay, now they're actually going to fight, or it looks like they're going to fight. Oh, shit. For years, I've been saying Wilder was trash. Wilder ain't shit. AJ would easily beat him. AJ fought the tougher opposition. The Wilder only looks good. He only knocks guys out because they're no good. And you could see Wilder's hand coming from a mile away. And, you know, like all this stuff that you've been talking for years. And then now you got to pay the piper.
This sounds conspiratorial. What you're saying here.
I think I'm on point, quite frankly. I think I'm on point because I'm looking. The most critical AJ fans are being more critical on AJ than non-AJ fans. Oh, hey, he doesn't look good. He needs like 2-3 more fights. 2-3 more fights. You know, he's still developing. Developing. You kidding me? He's developing in his 30s.
Yeah, when AJ says he wants 2 more, when he said he wants 2 more fights before the end of the year, I'm saying no. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I'd love to see it, but yeah, right. Yeah, right. I agree with you. I think people are being a little too critical of the performance. I liked the jab to the body and the overhand right. He landed a hellacious overhand right on Helenius. We got to remember Helenius coming off a 7-day layoff. I haven't seen that in a while at the top level. He was out a 7-day layoff. So I don't really know how much to read into it, what reads into it, this fight. I just think at a certain point, guys are who they are. And that's what I put out this little trolling tweet that AJ needs to change trainers because he's changed trainers so many times. And I have people coming
they're gonna soft dox you with that one in the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
Those are soft doxes.
And I'm gonna enjoy the hell out of it. But I'm watching him, and he is who he is, and Wilder is who he is, and that's my point. That's been my point of the heavyweight division for a while. Is these guys are who they are. I think people want great heavyweights to walk through that door. That the great heavyweights we saw back in the 90s and saw when we watched Klitschko, and those guys just aren't there. I mean, I think the closest you have to that is maybe Tyson Fury, but we barely ever see him. I just think we're in a trash heavyweight division. And once again, I catch a lot of heat from this, but I think they're trying to push propaganda that these heavyweights are great. And at the top, I think they're fun heavyweights with fun matchups. I think there's value there. I like the heavyweight division when they put on the fights, but I don't think any of these guys are all-time greats. I just don't agree with that. Me and Beeb have had it out with that before. He thinks Tyson Fury beats all the great heavyweights of previous eras because he's big. If that's the case, how in the hell does Alexander Usyk have 3 belts in the heavyweight division plus the lineal if size matters that much? But as far as the performance, I thought it was okay. I give him like a C+, B-, something like that. He did what he had to do. Do you think, I think you were on the side of Wilder in this matchup always, right? I've been more on the AJ side in this matchup.
I've evolved. So at first, if we go back to 2016-ish, sort of, you know what I mean? I did favor AJ at that time. It didn't take the Ruiz fight for me to switch though. I saw Takam, the Takam fight, and then, but especially the Parker fight. Parker was landing some really good right hands on AJ in that fight. And I just saw a pattern, like he just stays like I know everybody uses this nowadays, but he's in a straight line, right? Mm-hmm. He stays in a center line like all the time, his head. And the problem with AJ, have you noticed that he doesn't move his head? He moves the gloves, it's one of the most bizarre things. But I always felt since then, we've got to go all the way back to like 2018. Since then, I've been favoring Wilder in that matchup. Even after Wilder lost and got beat up by Fury 2 times, I'm like, I still think Wilder beats him. I still think Wilder's going to land. It's bound to happen. It's going to land that right hand. And I also think a lot of fans out there are too critical about Wilder. Like, is Wilder, Muhammad Ali in the ring? No. Okay. He's not a boxer like that. But to say Wilder doesn't have a decent jab, I think it's decent. He has a decent jab. Okay. He has a decent hook. It's not amazing or nothing, but it's decent. He's got more in his tools, but most importantly, that right hand. It's a vicious, lethal right hand. And just like we're going to talk about him in a little bit, but he's kind of like Navarrete in a way. He finds awkward, weird moments to throw that fucking right hand. He's going to find a way to throw it. He's out of position at times. He's off balance, but he'll get himself back in balance for a split second to throw that right hand again. And you don't drop Fury 4 times if you don't know how to throw that fucking right hand. Right? So it's going to land, bro. Maybe AJ will take it better than we think. Right? I just don't think he is. I honestly believe there are people out there that thought this fight would never happen with AJ and Wilder. And now that they see that it's a good possibility, all of a sudden they're being super critical about AJ when you could have been this critical in his last fight. You could have been this critical about him even in the Pula fight. You could have been this critical for a while now.
In fairness, though, Wilder.
Really quick, what about the rematch with Ruiz? Look how he fought that fight. He looked better in this fight than the rematch with Ruiz, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say, in fairness, though, Wilder versus Joshua could have happened by now, and instead they elected to do the Fury fight. So that's in fairness to the AJ side. Now, as far as this matchup that could happen in January, I think identity comes into play, because don't you get the feeling that, and HLD's alluding to it in the chat, and I agree, it almost looks to me like AJ is sort of an identity crisis when he does fight. He is who he is, but I don't see him committing the same way that Wilder commits to punches. Wilder, to me, knows who he is. And look, there's things to be critical about Wilder, too. He's fought once in the past 2 years. Once. He hasn't fought in 10 months. His resume is weak.
Only fought a round.
Heavyweights, he's got a weak resume. So he's 37 years old. So we can be critical of AJ, but we also need to be critical of Wilder, because there's a lot of things to be critical about. But I think the determining factor when you have a lot of question marks for a fight like this is, I just watch Wilder fight when he does fight, and he knows who he is. I'm going to set up the right hand, and I'm going to try to send you to hell. That's it. With AJ, there seems to be some sort of identity crisis in between styles.
He's always
working
been that
with
way,
multiple trainers, right?
I just think that's always been AJ, bro. Like he early in his career, he looked phenomenal, right? And the thought was, man, he's only had like 15 fights, and imagine how he's going to look, 10 fights from now. But like he didn't improve really, right? But again, I think like people forget, bro. Like he had a tough fight with Povetkin, was hitting him, bro.
Mm-hmm.
That was not an easy fight. Like, yeah, he took Povetkin out, but I mean, this is an old Povetkin, bro. Like Takam was landing right hands on the dude. Parker, that was a tough fight. People forget he got hurt by Parker, and then they had to fix the laces. All right, or the tape. I mean, it was a tape. They had to retape him. Right. So all I know is you're gonna fight Wilder. Loosen up the tape a little bit. You may need to rewrap the tape. A little bit.
I think it's a 50-50 fight, and I want to see it. To me, it's one of the best matchups that can be made in boxing.
Wilder, third round knockout.
I don't know with confidence how that fight plays out. I just don't. If AJ does take one of those right hands, fine. Then it's an AJ fight at that point to me. But he's got to take one of those right hands, fine, in order to find out. And I think he can tap Wilder's chin as well. So I think it go either way, and I want to see that fight. The Top Rank card. To me, Top Rank is still the best. There's value in all of these promotional companies, promotional outfits. There's value in every network. I think the value that Top Rank brings to the table is they still have the most stable and sustainable model, right? And the environment comes through the screen. And I think they did another good job on Saturday night of putting the fight where it belongs. Although the undercard wasn't great, you had guys being showcased. And one of those guys is Emiliano Vargas, who I think is a star in the making. And It's tough to tell early on, right? But he had a guy in with him who obviously very flawed, coming off of multiple losses, but a guy who was going to come after him from the gate, who showed him no respect. And I thought that Vargas did a good job of switch hitting, using his spacing, showing patience, staying calm in the situation. After the first knockdown, he stays patient and then gets the second knockdown in the stoppage intelligently. And I just think this kid has everything. He's got star quality. He's marketable. He's obviously got a good pedigree, great DNA. His dad's in the corner. And I've heard interviews with him, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't go to clubs. He seems in it. Like this is in it. And they need to continue to fight him monthly. He's going to fight again in 4 weeks. I think everything is there for this kid. Top Rank has a phenomenal young stable. And I think this kid will be possibly the biggest name on that stable. Whether he ends up being the most talented or the greatest, I think he's going to be like the name in that young stable. And Top Rank needs to figure out a way once they build these guys to keep them, right? Because they're getting purged from outside promotional outfits. Matchroom's trying to build their American model. PBC bids on fighters when they get to the end of the contract. But overall, your thoughts on everything I just said?
Yeah, look, the problem with Top Rank, unfortunately for them, is that they're like that baseball team that has a great farm system to build up these players. They, you know what I mean? They bring them up at a certain level, and then, the New York Yankees show up and just offer them a big contract, and that's how the Yankees get their players. That's what's going on right now. There's no salary cap for these promoters. You know what I mean? Like it's free game out there, and maybe that's a good thing for the fighters in terms of getting paid. But I think the oversaturated market, or the overpriced market, I should say, where these fighters are getting overpaid and above. We've been talking about this for years, Calix, right? Market value. We've been talking about market value for years on this channel and on my channel, right? The guys getting paid above market value. We've been saying that for years, right? Yeah. What happens with that is fighters, they get developed by a promotional company like Top Rank, right? And then, Arum in his mind is like, I'm not going to pay you like. Sorry, Mikey, I'm not going to pay you $7 million to fight Vargas. Like, I'm not going to do it, right? I'm just not. But then, so Mikey goes like, just as an example, he got paid a lot of money by the Zone, right? To get paid, he got paid to fight Vargas. And I remember at the time we complained about it. People were like, "Oh, you're anti-fighter. Why don't you want Mikey to make his money?" And like, I'm not mad at Mikey. I'm just saying they fuck up the market. And that's why these fights take forever to get made. That's why, bro.
Yeah.
Like, and then people that say, no, it's better this way because, look at what PBC's doing. Like, here's the thing. PBC benefited from having a stable of fighters that Golden Boy developed. But now they haven't really developed anybody. All these guys are in their 30s. Like Spence is in his 30s. The Charles are in their 30s. Wilder's 37. Like you know what I mean? Tank's going to be 30 soon. Like they don't have that many young guys out there. They have some, but not like Top Rank. They're going to rely on poaching off of Top Rank. That's what they're going to do. They're going to rely on that. That's their game plan, right? So you're right, Calix, to come full circle. Top Rank has to find a way to keep the talent, right?
Yeah.
And I think they've weathered the storm. I do. I think they weathered the storm. And now the Zone isn't just forking out money for whatever fights anymore. In fact, the schedule is trash now. They're not giving Eddie that much money anymore. They're being more frugal with what they're paying for, which is a long term. It's a good thing. Yeah. We need them to be frugal, right? These guys like Thurman, we need to phase them out. We need to phase these dudes out. You know what I mean? And get fighter and start having an incentivized program that the bigger the challenge, the more money you make. Okay. We don't need to make these guys multimillionaires and pay them above market value before, they prove anything. That it's not, you cannot have a functioning sport that way. You just can't. It doesn't work. I wish we could just pay these guys millions and then it would trickle down to us, the fans. You know what I mean? Like it would just trickle down to us, and out of the kindness of their heart, they'll fight. Like imagine like a dude fighting for $2 million, right? And then he gets a chance to fight Canelo, and he fights Canelo for $2 million as well. Like that's not going to happen, bro. Like you cannot if you overpay dudes when they're fighting a nobody, they believe that's their market value now, right? That's the way it is. Look at Haney. Haney, like they're gonna have to put him on pay-per-view on his own to fight Prograis. That's ridiculous, bro.
Yeah.
No one's gonna buy that. It doesn't do anything for anybody. Like it's just ridiculous. Top Rank does need to find a way to keep these guys, right? They need to find a way to get the mega, like they need to play the game a little bit as well and get the mega fights on their side. They develop, and then somehow, if you go back, if you think about it, why Crawford and Spence were brought up onto two different promotional banners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they had no involvement at all with the Crawford Spence fight, when they could have had involvement, right? Like 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago. And for whatever reason, Top Rank can't figure it out. Like at the top level, they can't figure it out, bro. They keep losing these big mega fights, and fighters they develop end up going to PBC, for example. Like it's the way it is, man. Like, and I think a lot of that's been phased out, though. I do. I don't think we're going to see another Crawford Spence situation again. I don't. I don't think that it's going to work to their favor what they're trying to do with Stevenson right now. In the long run, I don't think it's going to really work out for them because Stevenson's really young. They're not going to be able to age him out. You know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And then you got Vargas' son developed. A lot of the Puerto Rican fighters, they like to sign with Top Rank because they feel he does the best with them. You have Xander Zayas. So they're developing something right now. And maybe, Cal, just made one more point. I will say this. Aram is, how old is he? Like 93, 92?
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible. It's impossible to not be out of touch when you're that old. I don't care how smart you are. There's going to be some level of out of touchness in you. All right. And the fact that this old out of touch man is running a promotional company, because he's smart enough to know if I'm promoting a fight out in Australia, I'm going to have an Australian promoter handle that. If I'm promoting a fight in the UK, I'm going to let Warren handle that. If I'm like whatever it is, right? Michaela Mayer, go with Boxer over there. Women's boxing is hot in the UK. Go over there. I'm going to let you go box over there. You could represent Top Rank over there. He's smart enough to know that. He knows how to facilitate things better than Eddie Hearn does, quite frankly.
It's the art of delegation.
Yeah, exactly. The dude is a master of delegating. But I just feel that the part where he's kind of out of touch, though, is making those big mega fights now. He's just out of touch, bro. Like, I don't know what it is. He can't quite figure out the young audience. At least Aram can't. He has a lot of middle-aged people at his shows, right? They sell out, for the most part. He knows how to do that. But what about the young audience? You know what I mean? Like, he can't quite, kind of like PBC, to their credit, is doing a good job with like Tank and with a young audience. Top Rank is missing that a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe. As far as the rest of the undercard, Richard Torres Jr., I don't have much to say other than he's bum bashing right now, and we'll see. We'll see. Another marketable guy, but I think he's one of those guys that's caught between weight classes. If ever there was a face for Bridgerweight, that would be it, right? Because small for heavyweight can't make
cruiserweight. Step him up, though.
What?
Like he fought my mechanic or something. Like who's he fighting, bro?
So keep him doing that for a while, maybe a year, fight once per month, and then we'll see.
I think they got to step him up a little bit, brother.
Yeah, if they can get him to 8 rounders, we'll see what he has at that point. I want to see what he has after the first round. But he looks small for the weight, right? And that's going to be the issue going forward. Is he looks small for the weight. We'll find out with him. And as far as the main event,
Navarrete.
Feliz
Navarrete.
Feliz
Navarrete.
próspero año y felicidad.
Look, let me tell y'all something. This poll is too close. 36 votes. Y'all got me at 53%. Am I allowed back on the bandwagon? Let me tell y'all something. One pick should not get me kicked off the bandwagon for life. Don't listen to JC. Don't listen to JC's propaganda. Just because he got it right, don't listen to his propaganda. I should be allowed back on the bandwagon. I've been pushing Navarrete. One fight, I pick against him. And you guys are not letting me back on the bandwagon. It's not right. This fight, I thought was a great fight. And everybody I've talked to, I know several people who went to the fight, all enjoyed the hell out of it. And once again, I think it illustrates the difference between internet nerd boxing talk and people who actually go to fights and respect the fighters and just like to have a good time. I've seen people just being too miserable about what was a great fight and saying, oh, it was a one-sided bashing and Valdez sucked, Valdez disappointed, Valdez didn't look that good. Look, if you guys continue to do this, you're going to get guys who don't take risks. All right, because Valdez had points where he was in this fight and it was a great fight and Valdez was landing shots, the shots that we expected him to land, right? That was the people who were picking Valdez. And I got news for people. Most people were picking Valdez and the late money was coming in on Valdez. And this was sharp money, not square money. It was sharp money, smart people betting on Valdez. And it didn't happen. It did not happen, D-Style. Navarrete, to me, is the story. This guy, I'm watching him fight in the first and second round. I'm like, all right, first thing I got wrong, he's starting fast. He's starting fast. This does not look like the guy who fought Wilson. It does not look like him. Then, fifth and sixth round, Valdez starts to land some hooks. The hooks that we expected him to land, right? Where he gets low, lands on Navarrete as Navarrete is coming forward in that mid-range. And he walks right through him. He walks right through him. And then we get to round 9 and 10, where I felt the fight started to get interesting, right? Is Navarrete clearly hurts his hand in the 9th round, stops throwing it. Valdez starts to capitalize. I feel he wins 9 and 10. And it starts to get closer on my scorecard, although I thought Valdez needed to win the rest of the rounds just to get to a draw. I thought I had Navarrete up 6-2 at one point. Well, what happens? Beginning 11th round, Valdez comes out strong again. Navarrete, in the last 5 minutes, takes it to a gear that Valdez cannot match. And Navarrete says, nope. This is my fight. In the last 5 minutes of the fight, Navarrete turns it on, and Valdez is a couple gears behind him. He's just not going to catch Navarrete at that point. Nava starts to beat him up in those last 5 minutes, in my opinion. And that's what, in my opinion, separates special fights from great fights, right? I thought this was a great fight, entertaining, two-sided at points, and a great performance from Nava. But the special performances, the guys sitting ringside, right? Morales, Barrera, that's what separates it. Is when you get to those championship rounds, it's two-sided, and the whole fight, there's the ebbs and flows and there's momentum shifts. And we had momentum shifts in this fight, but the Nava's big moments were much bigger than Valdez's big moments, right? I mean, before we get into other stuff about the fight, do you somewhat agree with that assessment of the actual fight?
You know, well, let me just kind of run down how I saw it. So, round 1, I swear to God, round 1, I said, man, my early knockout prediction is out the window. Like that ain't going to happen. And the reason I'm saying that is because I saw how Valdez reacted to the punches. Another thing that was very obviously, I know now that it is taller and bigger, but man, he looked like a welterweight in there. Like he looked huge, bro. And I wish they had. Remember they used to have them step on the scale in the locker room so we knew their weight going to the ring. They've stopped doing that for some reason. I would love to know how much this guy weighs. I would love to know. But and another thing, if anybody were to tell you, Hey, one of those guys came up from 122 pounds. You wouldn't think it was Navarrete, bro.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't like. There's no way. I don't even know how the fuck did this dude ever make
The
122
wild
pounds.
card going in, right, is he's just getting into 130, and he hasn't looked good at 130 yet.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, look, the reason I forgot how big he is, because Wilson was bigger.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm maybe in my mind, I'm like, wow, but he's just not as big. He's not going to have the size advantage he used to have. He's not, also Bias is not a little dude himself. It's a pretty big dude as well, right? So then when he got in the ring with Navarrete, it was like, whoa. Like it was kind of like when Margarito fought Paul Williams and Cintron, and then he got in the ring with Cotto.
Yeah.
And you saw the size difference. You're like, whoa. Damn, I knew he was bigger, but damn. I didn't know he was that much bigger. Shit. So that's number one, right? And then I noticed two things right away. I was watching this fight with a friend. First, I said, I think about this is going to be okay. Because he was landing that right to the body beautifully, like for the first 3 rounds. Pop, he was just landed. And he saw a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of redness on the side of Navarrete. Navarrete started throwing his shots, right? And it's never like the same sequence, by the way. It's never like jab, jab, cross, or I don't know, 1, 3, 2, or like there's no like pattern at all. Like forget about trying to figure out a pattern, right? This is not in a Rubik's Cube you're trying to figure out, bro. This is he is changing. It changes completely every second with Navarrete.
Yeah,
he started switching stances after his combinations. Right, he would switch stance, and in switching stance, he will move away from the right hand that Valdez was trying to land to the body.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, this dude does not get enough credit because of the way he fights for his ring IQ. He just doesn't. Like, just because he doesn't do things in a traditional way, right? And then I keep hearing Bradley keep telling us that Valdez is the more skilled and the more defensive fighter. He has the better defense. But based on what? Like what? I saw. How is a dude getting hit the most, getting busted up the most? How does he have better defense? That's just a side note. But back to what I saw. Another thing. Dude, like, I don't know, man. It was round 2, and somebody shared it with me on Twitter. He landed a massive, like this dude loaded this hand from Australia and landed it on freaking Navarrete, bro. And Navarrete just went like this and just like it gave him a scratch in the nose, bro. He made his nose itchy. That's it. Like no bloody nose, no wobbling, nothing. And I thought to myself, oh, Valdez is fucked. And I know it was early in the fight. And I'm not saying that early I said, oh, he's going to lose. But I knew it was going to be a long night for Valdez, right? And I was hoping he was going to land him more. And I said this to later on to Chicano Prophet, who also picked Navarrete, by the way. Shout out to him. I also said this. It wasn't just that Navarrete was able to take the punch in the chin. It wasn't just that, Calix. It was that he was not able to land it as often as I thought he would.
Yeah.
He just wasn't. He was missing wide. And then you know what Navarrete would do? What do we always say about defense? It's great and all when you make a guy miss, but we got to do what you make him miss. Make him pay.
Yeah.
He was making him pay. Every time he missed, he would come back, boom, boom, pa. When he did land, he would still come back, boom, boom, pa. Every time. With whatever weird combinations he was coming up with. The dude, he breaks every rule. That our rules, right? The rules of boxing. Yeah. But they work. He does everything wrong, yet it's so right. Like it's It's amazing. And then once in a while, he surprises me, and he does a good old-fashioned jab, hook, textbook style. Like, he does it all, bro. He just, just whatever he feels like doing. You know what it is? And I noticed this, and I've always noticed this. But it wears off, and then I kind of, that dude's lunging in. He's going to get caught. I always fall for the same shit. He just makes it up as he goes. It's like intuition in the moment. Like, it's instinctive, of course, but I also think it's like intuition. Like, he feels it, bro. Remember when Michael Jackson would say he doesn't think when he dances, he just feels it? He just feels it, bro. He's like a smooth criminal, you know what I mean? Like he just feels it.
He's a rhythm fighter, and once he gets in the rhythm,
if I seen this dude with both feet off the canvas, which is suicide. You're not a boxing trainer will yell at you for doing that. He would jump both feet off the canvas and like uppercut a dude like sideways, and then land, and then hit him with another uppercut, and then again both feet and hook. Like, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, and then it's working. And then and one more thing. I think sometimes when we analyze fights, and I'm speaking about myself, we put a lot of focus on the guy we're analyzing. So, like, for example, like Navarrete, I was thinking about the Hoyt fight, right? And I said, Hoyt had a lot of success against Navarrete.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, I think, and in my mind, well, Valdez is bigger puncher than Hoyt. At least I was assuming. Now I'm questioning that, to be honest. And he's a better fighter than Hoyt. Is he? I don't know. I think he is, but I think there's not as much separation as I thought. But here's what I failed to recognize, and I shouldn't have. He fought off the high guard, and even then, Navarrete pieced him up. Hoyt looked like he went through a meat grinder at the end of that fight. His face was all busted up. His eyes were swollen. Because you know what he does, bro? When you're covering with a high guard, Navarrete just hits your guard. He's just like, those are 8-ounce gloves, bro. If I keep punching your 8-ounce glove, you're still feeling the impact. And then he starts piercing through it and just breaking through the guard like nothing. And their guard is moving and they're getting pieced up. That's what happened to Valdez in his fight. All right. You're gonna have your guard up? Well, guess what? I know where your hands are. So I could do my swan shit right now. You know what I mean? I'm good. Okay. I'm just gonna feel my way in this shit. Like, because I could see both your hands. And then another thing I wanted to cut out too quick. Valdez brings that hand low, right? And he was ready for it, bro. Like, he saw that shit coming. Underrated reflexes. This guy has amazing reflexes. Underrated, not anymore. I told everybody he was going to win, but I told you guys in an indirect way, right? It was like a pop quiz. I was testing y'all's knowledge. When I said Navarrete was going to win by knockout, what I really meant to say was, but you guys know I'm joking, right?
He went back on the bandwagon too. And look, I got several things to highlight about this. When I saw Valdez early in the fight tensing up, and you can see it, he's tensing up. He can't find those counters that I thought he was going to be able to find early. And what it is, it's the awkwardness of Navarrete. And we do this a lot as boxing fans. I'll put myself in it because I'm guilty of it in this case. A lot of times we see guys throw shorter shots, faster shots up the middle, and assume that guy's the better boxer, right? A lot of times I look at CompuBox and see, okay, Valdez is now top 10 statistically in defensive categories. He'll be able to evade shots. And that's not the case. What Navarrete showed in this fight, there's a method to his madness. I see him rolling with shots. I see him deceptively moving in on Valdez. He's the better defensive fighter. His offense is the defense.
And throws uppercuts while he's rolling, bro.
Yes. And not only are they awkward shots, but they're short and they're coming from weird angles. And punches like that are not supposed to have power behind them. They're just not. That's the reason that guys don't throw those punches. It's supposed to be the crisper, shorter shots that have the power on them. He's throwing shots from angles where they're not supposed to have power, and I'm seeing his opponents react to him, and they're
You know what,
reacting to him in a way which they have a lot of power. So
Yeah,
when
you're right.
dealing with a guy like that, how do you find sparring partners?
I just think that you
prepare for
don't,
that?
Calix. You don't, but I think what it is it's like this. It's like we only do this in boxing, if you think about it. Like if you look at any other sport, the technique in which, like let's say golf or baseball, how you swing the bat or how you swing the golf club, right? Is not the same for everybody. Everyone has a different technique, and depending on your size, your height, right, the length of your arms, all that depends on how you do it. Navarrete has found a way, like he understands. He is one within himself, bro. This guy understands how to get leverage off of shots in ways that other fighters cannot, right? Because he's figured out a way to do it with his body composition. And he's found a very clever way of doing it. And I'm telling you, even when he hurt the right hand, he started using it in the last 2 rounds, and he was clubbing with it. And he still found the way to make that hand effective. He still found the way to use it. Like, that is some crazy as shit. I'm going to say something very controversial right now.
Uh-oh, do it.
Very controversial. I would like to, when I was looking at Eric Morales and Barrera, the first thing I said, man, those guys were way better fighters than these guys. But then I thought about something.
Uh-oh.
I want to say that Morales and Barrera would beat Navarrete. I want to say that. I want to say they're more skilled fighters, they're better fighters. And on paper, they look like better fighters. When I watch them fight, they look like better fighters. But would they beat Navarrete? Like, would they be able to deal with him? Like, I want to say yes, but would they? Would they be able to figure it out?
I want to be careful with recency bias here.
Yeah.
But I think there's a matchup there. Here's the thing about Navarrete. And first of all, Nando, appreciate the super chat. I want to try to unpack this the best I can. And boxing pound for pound, Jack says Navarrete entered top 12 pound for pound, which I have a top 12, had a top 12. I haven't done it in like a year. And I tried to devise one D style last week, and I had 17 guys in my top 12. I just couldn't do it. And I'm watching this fight play out, and I'm like, Navarrete is like number 18 in my top 12 now. Like he's in that discussion of top 12 pound for pound to me, watching the fight based off of what he's already accomplished. And we don't give enough credit to lower weight class guys when they step up weight classes, right? When a guy steps up from 140 to 147, we act like he's reinventing the wheel, right? When a guy steps up from 126 to 130, it's like, oh, it's only 4 pounds. He's stepping up a weight class, and he's beating up a top 130 pounder fresh out the gate. But here's the thing about Navarrete and why he's a stylistic matchup for even the greats to me is a stylistic problem is how many guys have we seen who can consistently throw 100 punches per round, get stronger as the fight goes on, and they've never cut. Navarrete's never been cut. And it's the flaw of what people are out there saying too, right? Is when you look at Valdez, Emanuel Stewart did a great job of this when he was commentating. I thought he was the best, one of the best. But one of the things he used to talk about is how guys for different ethnic backgrounds, geographical backgrounds, don't cut. Some cut better than others. Italian fighters have higher cheekbones, longer nose. They show punches early. Arturo Gatti, right? He used to talk about that. Paulie Malignaggi. A lot of scar tissues. African fighters don't cut at all. You can hit them with, you can grab a post and hit them. They're not going to cut. Navarrete, I didn't talk about this enough in the lead up. He does not cut. He didn't have a mark on him. He throws on his cowboy hat after the fight. And Valdez is catching him with big shots. The shots that we said Valdez was going to catch him with. No reaction, no cut. And Valdez, as soon as Navarrete is hitting him in the first round, Valdez is a guy who cuts. I want people to be careful because you see a lot of this out there the past couple of days is look at Valdez's face compared to Navarrete's face. And you're going to tell me that this was a great close fight? Be careful with that. Look at Danny Garcia, Lamont Peterson. Danny Garcia looked like he was beat up and lost the fight, but he won the fight. There are certain instances in which guys look like that's the loser. If you just judge the fight based off of facial features and abrasions and cuts, that guy definitely lost the fight, but he won the fight. I think it was not as one-sided as these guys' faces showed after. But what I really want to highlight is
that close.
The issue is I had it 116, 112, but what I'm saying is there was a point in the fight where it looked like Valdez was coming back in the fight, right? Navarrete hurts his hand. Valdez starts to come on a little bit. I had it wide before that. And then I thought Valdez starting to scratch his way back in the last 5 minutes. Navarrete saying no. But my point is, Navarrete has a style that's a problem for everybody, because how do you deal with the guy who throws 100 punches per round from weird angles and throws them with power, which you're not supposed to land powerful shots from those angles, and at the same time, he does not cut? How many times do we see guys, like, name one, name a guy who fights with that style who does not cut and barely ever gets hurt? Like, besides the Liam Wilson fight, name a fight where we saw this guy severely hurt.
So what happened, Cal?
Like, the style.
You're right. I mean, look, light-skinned boxers are going to just show more damage. But here's the thing, though. With all that said, well, you're right about the whole, like, don't just look at the picture, but he still fucked up Valdez's face more than anyone. No one's done that to Valdez.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, and you got to look at the side of the face. That was from the left hand. That was doing that damage right there. You know what I mean? But you're right. Look, Navarrete looks like he just went for a little jog, and like that's the way he looks. There's no doubt about that. But
how do you fight with that style in
rarely ever when you say, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. When you fight with that style, he doesn't get hit like 40% of the time like some fighters do.
I understand that, D-Stop, but what I'm saying is, how does he accomplish that throwing 100 punches per round in a lot of fights? There has to be That's what I was saying, Alex. Look,
right.
There has to be subtleties that people aren't giving him credit for.
But when you look at the punches, Alex,
that he's rolling with, he's got better upper body movement than people give him credit for. He's not just a one-dimensional.
No, I 100%. If you're getting that, like, I don't think his face is clean simply because of genetics. I do genetics plays a part, right? But you would think a guy that throws that much, that's offensive minded, is going to be getting hit to where you would still show some damage, right? And he doesn't. So it's not a matter of like just that. I think he does roll with shots. He does make guys miss more often than not. It's just that when guys fight in an offensive manner, they don't get credit for defense. But defense is not getting hit. That's what defense is. Defense isn't, oh, I'm doing defensive moves, I'm fighting negative. That's not what defense is. That people have made it that, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Even the punch stats are very misleading, bro. Because you can look at the punch, you look at the punch and say, well, he's not landing at a high rate. It's by design because he was smacking the fucking guard. He was piecing up the guard. He kept Valdez like this, and he kept him moving. Like while he's throwing, and he's put himself in angles where Valdez is having a hard time. Valdez had to sit, load, and shoot. So he kept him moving. Like that wasn't just by mistake. He's smart. He knows what he's doing. So a lot of the offense was meant to stifle Valdez, keep him shelled up, right? And while he's doing that, I'm the one landing. And guess what? Even though we can't we're not going to count punches landing on the guard or partially landing through the guard as clean punches, right? But they're still doing damage. Cal, let's go like this with your gloves and let Navarrete just hit nothing but your gloves like 100 straight times. You're going to have a headache or he's going to knock you out. Like, it is what it is. You know what I mean? So you have to look at this dude's fights. And when you look at his fights, he's in control. And the only reason Valdez had any moment where it looked, because I agree with you, it looked like he was coming back, was because he hurt his hand. That something like that had to happen. right?
He had his moments in the 5th and 6th, but even the 5th round could have been a comparative. Like I was when I'm watching the fight, I'm like, you could have
Yeah,
Navarrete winning all because the people were having problems with the wide scorecards. I didn't. I thought it was a great fight, even with the wide scorecards. I got what I wanted out of it as a fan, but I didn't have a problem with 118, 110 because I'm
can I just
watching and I'm like,
address?
I feel like you could have gave Nava a clean sweep in the first 5 rounds. I feel like even a 10th
It could
round could
be.
have been comparative.
I do think. Look, do I? Let me tell you what I didn't see. I didn't see a fight where one guy didn't belong in the ring with the other guy. Like they
Right.
belonged in the ring. Like it was a spirited effort by Valdez. I think he showed heart. I'm still a fan. I still want to watch him fight again. I just think this was just, in hindsight, especially, right? It was just a bad style matchup for him.
Yeah,
This is just a bad style.
I'm glad you said that though, because that's a great way to put it. I think that's a perfect way to put it. He wasn't outclassed. He didn't look like a guy that the moment was bigger than him. I'm talking about Valdez. He didn't look like a guy who didn't belong in the ring with Navarrete. What it looked like was what it did look like was there was clear separation between the two. So when people start to talk about a rematch, a possible trilogy, I look at it and I actually think it could play out like Juan Diaz, Juan Manuel Marquez, which is the first one was one of my favorite fights to go back and watch. And Juan Diaz, the younger fighter, had his moments early in that fight, really tested Marquez. And then Marquez, as the fight went on, started to show that separation, right? And then they did the rematch because it was a great fight. But what happened in the rematch? Juan Diaz showed Marquez a ton of respect going into that second fight, and Marquez already had him figured out. I think the key thing that I missed coming into the fight, and maybe some people are still missing, is this whole Valdez is technically a better fighter. Valdez is a better boxer, more skilled than Navarrete is just a caveman who that was wrong, because that's why I'm trying to really hit this home is when you're throwing 100 punches per round, let's say 90, 80, that's a high output. When you're exposing yourself to risk that much, D-style, you should be getting hit because you're fighting with you don't have as much of like it takes more skill level when you're throwing a lot of punches to not get hit than a guy who's economical in not getting hit and not
He's doing it in real time, bro. And here's another thing.
There is a lot of nuance in Navarrete's game that people are missing.
Yeah, no, you're right. And here's the thing: like all his punches have purpose. Like if it's not meant to land and hurt you, it's meant to get you off balance.
Yeah.
I saw this guy aim at the guard with a purpose of trying to find an opening with his next punch. Like you know what I mean? It's like, okay, if you're gonna keep your guard up again, I could see your hands, Valdez. And when you load up, every time he saw it coming, he would make a miss. Like very rarely did Valdez just throw one shot. He had to get him. He had to get in an exchange to land on Navarrete.
Yeah,
at times. So I do think that, you know, even Bob Arum, like before the fight, made the statement. I saw an interview where he said, Navarrete is not a good boxer. We know that, but he's awkward. Like, what does being a good boxer mean? And I think that term has been hijacked to mean when you're an outboxer who fights economical and you're negative and you're just fencing your opponent. I think they've made that term into boxing, right? Like it means you're the one backing up and the other guy needs to lead. That somehow became boxing. But I don't know. I think we need to re-hijack that word to mean it could mean a lot of different things. That there's different styles and different guys deliver, you know, what they do in a different way. I think Navarrete showed me that not only do I have a chin, it's not going to be that easy for Valdez to be hitting me. And it wasn't. Valdez had to exert a lot of energy to find an opening, bro. Like just to find an opening to throw. And imagine how frustrating.
He was very tense those first 4 rounds, trying to find it.
Yeah, well, because he felt it in the first round.
Yeah.
Like I think he blitzed him early to let him know, yo, this ain't gonna be an easy fight. So let you that was a blitz. I'm letting you know right now, you're in for some, right? So get ready, get your guard up, buddy. And he got the guard up really quick. And I think Bradley's wrong. Bradley's like, it was the guard. If he just put his hands down and he was elusive, because when he tried to do that, he tried to be elusive, right? He was still getting pieced up. And he was getting beat to the punch. And that's when the jab was landing better for Navarrete. So I don't think that's the answer. Nobody had the answer, bro.
Yeah.
Bradley said it's because he used the guard too much. Barrera said because he was ducking low too much. But Reynoso was saying he didn't duck enough. So like I don't. Reynoso was telling him to duck low. And I'm like, what? He's going to get caught with the uppercut.
At the end of the day, you got to give Nava his credit for making it.
I think Morales said he should have thrown more. Like, everyone had different reasons. What they had their own opinion, right? Like, what he did wrong was this, and what he did wrong was that. Sometimes, guys, there's just a guy you can't beat.
Yeah,
that's it.
Sometimes I'll get to that in a minute. First of all, I want to touch on a couple of other things. ESPN, I think that's the reason, and it's not just ESPN, it's multiple commentating crews, is sometimes I don't know if they miss something or just try to push it, but in those middle rounds, I think ESPN was giving Valdez too much credit for stuff he wasn't really doing, and I think it was comparative rounds. So I think that's why you get pushback from people and saying this wasn't a close fight. This wasn't what ESPN is trying to tell you it was, because there were a couple times in 5th or 6th round where they're saying that Navarrete's hurt, and I'm watching and it's like, he's not hurt. He's clearly not hurt. A couple times he tripped. One time Valdez stepped on his foot.
It's like the never swing, bro.
Yeah, it was never the case. Valdez was having some success finally landing those hooks that we said he would. And I agree with CY. I had it 116, 112 as well. But Navo, to me, looked comfortable pretty much the whole fight, other than the 9th and 10th round where his hand started to bother him.
What's your like how far can you go either way? Like me, I could see it anywhere from 10-2 Navarrete.
Me too.
To maybe, if you're pushing it, 7-5 Navarrete.
I struggled to see 7-5.
No, but I'm just, that's why I said maybe 7-5 Navarrete, right?
Yeah, it's maybe so.
I saw some people say 7-5, right? But what I'm saying is that's it. There is no draw or Valdez winning to me.
No.
Anywhere near it, like, is what I'm saying.
Nope.
So 10-2 is not crazy. Maybe 10-2 is pushing it, but so is 7-5. Right,
I was fine with 10-2. Yeah, I was fine with 10-2. To me, the range is 10-2 to 8-4.
The range, there we go. That's the word I'm looking for. The range.
Yeah, the range is 10-2 to 8-4. I think somewhere in that ballpark was fine to me. I was fine with the scorecard. 11-1 got a little like I saw 2 rounds for Valdez clearly, so 11-1 starts to get extreme, but like Nando said, you can have close fights with wide scorecard, or you can have great fights with wide scorecards. You just can.
You can. For sure. But here's the thing, and then here's another thing. I thought there was some rounds that Navarrete dominated. Valdez didn't dominate any rounds. Like that's another factor people got to look at. But I want to say this: Navarrete and Valdez have nothing to do with this, by the way. Those 2 guys are warriors. Navarrete is amazing, and I'm still a fan of Valdez. So it has nothing to do with them, right? Before someone gets on me, you're attacking the fighters. I'm not attacking the fighters. Okay, chill out, right? But this is it's a pattern I'm seeing with society, Calix. Like, they're going to remake Snow White, but there's no prince. There's no dwarves. So it's not Snow White. Like, call it something else. What are you doing, right?
She doesn't need a man. Snow White doesn't need a man.
You know what I mean? Like they're remaking Dances with Wolves, but it's in another planet with blue people. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're
doing that? Are you serious?
Yeah, Avatar, bro. Like
it's
the same story, right? Isn't it the same thing?
Yeah, except way worse.
Yeah. And then like they're just remaking it. Everything's a remake. Oh, we're gonna remake this. We're gonna remake. I heard that they're gonna remake Titanic, the movie. Like, okay. I heard that they're gonna remake. Like, everything's a remake now. Let's just remake it. Let's remake it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what? There's no originality anymore. There's no like the first of anything anymore. They want to change everything. They want to remake everything. ESPN. I didn't mind Barrera Morales being there. I didn't. Those 2 guys are legends.
I
Okay.
liked it.
But why are you asked? Like, why are in the ring being asked if we should do another trilogy like you guys did, another rivalry like you did? Like, you cannot manufacture it. You know what I mean? It has to be organic. If there ever is another Barrera Morales, another Mexican rivalry, it's gonna organically happen, right? The fight's going to happen. It's going to be a war, and then you're going to do a rematch because it makes sense. And people are going to want to see the rematch. And guys like me and Calix are going to be on here yelling at each other about who won, and no, you're wrong. No, you're stupid. My guy won. No, your guy didn't win. What are you talking about? What fight did you watch? And people are actually debating about who won. And you know what I mean? And it's a fight of the year candidate, like a real fight of the year, fight of the decade candidate. It's going to naturally happen. How does it happen? Just make the fights. Just put the guys in there with the best available opponents. And that's it. I don't think a rematch is necessary. They don't need to force it, right? And quite frankly, it's not Barrera Morales. It's not. So stop trying to force it. Okay? Like if you're comparing it to Morales Barrera, you already have these guys in a losing battle. It's a losing battle. It's like if I keep telling Cali, oh, Cali, there's a restaurant here in El Paso. I tell you, man, it's the best. No food ever. It tasted better ever. It's the best. And he eats it. It's good. But I mean, I don't know. If you're telling people this is Barrera Morales all over again, oh, we need another Mexican rivalry. We need to do this. We need to make it happen. Put them back in the ring so they can make it happen. That's not the way it works. Things happen organically by just having the best fight the best. Morales fought Barrera because they were the two best fighters in the division. They were trying to make a Mexican rivalry when those two guys fought. That wasn't a thing. They weren't making posters and inviting old legends to go watch the fight. But they do it with everything. Oh, he's the grandson of Ali. Oh, he's the son of Vargas. Oh, look at him. Can Tim Tszyu do to this guy like his dad did to... how about these guys just do things their own way? How about we just wait and see what happens? How about you put Navarrete in there with... I would like to see Lopez move up and fight him, right? I think that's a great fight. How about Navarrete versus Shakur Stevenson if he wants to move up? How about Navarrete against Shockey Foster? There's other fights you could do. You don't need to force try to manufacture Barrera Morales. All right? And if you change the Snow White story, it's no longer Snow White.
But she doesn't need a man. She doesn't. You didn't hear? She doesn't need a man. D-Style to save her.
That's why you're making the movie, just to prove she don't need a man. That's like what's going on? What the fuck is going on, bro? Then call it something else.
Yeah. Don't make another Ghostbusters. That was perfect. You don't mess with Ghostbusters. But
they have to have vaginas. We need to do it. Why?
So, look, I agree with everything you're saying, but I like
they make Catwoman, but it's Catman. You know what I mean? Like why? But anyway.
I had no issue with Barrera Morales there, but I agree with you. We don't need stuff shoved down our throat. Just let it organically happen. And there was clear separation in this fight, right? So where we don't need an immediate rematch. That was the thing. You hit on it perfectly. Like Valdez showed that he belonged, but he also showed that he's not as good as Navarrete head-to-head. Navarrete was the better fighter. Clearly, there was separation in this fight, and it showed in the last 5 minutes. That's when Navarrete, much like Teofimo against Lomachenko in the 12th round, said, nope, this is my night. I'm the better fighter tonight. It's done. It's done. And we don't need an immediate rematch. If Valdez works his way back, right, and it's good to hear he didn't have any orbital bone fractures or anything like that, he works his way back, strings together another win or two, then yeah, let's talk. Let's talk, right? But as of right now, I'd rather see Navarrete go in a different direction, and I'm sure Navarrete would welcome a rematch, wouldn't he? I mean, an immediate one. But I don't think that there's, you were alluding to it earlier, people saying Valdez should have fought this way, that way. you can throw out ways that Valdez could possibly win a fight with Navarrete. The problem is he can't execute that. There is a high risk, high reward way of him fighting Navarrete in a rematch, and that standing his ground early, trying to back Navarrete up and land those hooks with leverage. The problem is what happens when they don't have any effects on him 3 to 4 rounds in, and all your energy is spent because you're trying to land shots on the bigger, taller guy who can take shots like they're nothing. And another thing that went unnoticed was a lot of those shots were landing on the shoulder. Navarrete does a good job of, taking off impact of the punches, not only by rolling, but they catch him on the shoulder as well. So I don't really see an executable strategy by Valdez to beat Navarrete. I just think this is one of those matchups that's wrong for him, right? It's just wrong.
We could bring back Emmanuel Stewart. We could bring back Customado, right? They could tag team and work with Valdez for 2 years to master a game plan to beat Navarrete. He still won't beat Navarrete.
Yeah.
Can't beat him.
Yeah, you're right. But here's the thing, though, is there's still a pathway forward for Valdez. I look at the 130-pound division, and look, there is for titles. I think Valdez, if given the opportunity, can still win championships in the division. And let me explain.
Maybe.
The problem is the politics, right? You got Hector Luis Garcia, you got O'Shaquie Foster, you got Joe Cordina. It's not going to be the Navarrete path, but is it out of the question to say Valdez can't beat Shock Foster? And I like Shock Foster.
I think there's a lot we got to consider, Calix.
Do you think Hector Luis Garcia is a really good
here's what I want to say. Well, let me say what I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
But look, Valdez had one amazing performance. One.
Burchell.
He looked against I already forgot his name, but who's the guy that got a box over in Ireland by oh boy. Man, I forgot. I can't believe I forgot his name. Mike Condon beat him. Mariaga, sorry. Mariaga gave Valdez all he could handle. Right? Like a lot of guys give Valdez all he could handle, bro. All he could handle. And then that's why he was such a big underdog in the Burchell fight. And look, he looked great in that fight, but like, I don't know, man. I do think Burchell was weight drained for that fight. I don't think he was all there. I'm not trying to make excuses. Like the better man won.
Are you writing Valdez off at 32?
Well, let me break it down for you. This guy's living off of one win. I don't think he won the Conceição fight. Even if you think he won, he didn't look good. Okay? He lost. He didn't look good in the Adam Lopez fight a couple months ago. He didn't look good yesterday. He lost. He only won like 3 rounds against Stevenson. Where's he going to go? Like, he's had one great performance in his last 8 fights.
I think you're being harsh now.
Name me his other great performance besides the Burchell fight. He didn't look that good against Mariaga, bro. Mariaga ain't nothing.
Velez, I mean.
Did you see it? Did you see how Conan handled Mariaga? Like, he showed Valdez how you beat Mariaga. Valdez struggled.
Mariaga was old when he fought Conlon, though.
Yes, but I don't think that
Mariaga's a dangerous puncher. He's a dangerous puncher.
This is Conlon we're talking about, though. Like, you got to put it in context. Like, Mariaga gave him everything he could handle, brother. Everything.
What I'm saying is, I think Valdez can win a title at 130.
I don't disagree with that.
Politics. I don't like if Valdez. Look, he was just a favorite against. He was just a favorite in this fight against. Look, Navarrete is tough. Look, I understand, but Navarrete's tough. Conceição he's just a stylistic problem. You're not going to look good against him. Shakur Stevenson, you're not going to look good against him. I just think he's in the middle of a tough run, and there's a rebuilding process that can happen. There's still time. And I look at the other titleists in the division. Shock Foster, I like him. I think he's a good boxer, but I think it's still a fight Valdez can win. I think he can beat Hector Luis Garcia. Hector Luis Garcia is winning, living off of one victory against Chris Colbert, who
I agree with that, but like, look how we got to go down. We got to compare him to other guys that we think are overrated. Like, What I'm saying is this: I don't think Valdez was ever really who we thought he was, and I think that's clear. I just think he's been overrated. Obviously, we overrated him because we picked him to be Navarrete. The book is overrated him. Everyone overrated the guy, right?
Yeah.
Even a lot of people that picked Navarrete to win, like a lot of them thought it was going to be like more of a war, right? And so like aside from a couple, we're very confident about it. But what I'm saying is, I don't think he's going to get that Hector Ruiz Garcia fight. I don't think he's going to get the Cordina fight. That's number one. Yeah. And then like I just think at this point, I can see like Top Rank maybe saving him for an Inoue if Inoue ever shows up to 130. I could see Top Rank saving him for Robesi Ramirez or Venado Lopez or something like that. I could see that. I could see them just waiting, and they're going to use him as he's going to be a name. And I could honestly see that. I think it's going to be cash out time really soon.
And I think Shock Foster is still a promotional free agent. Matchroom just won a bid for his next fight. I'd like to see Top Rank make some sort of offer between Navarrete versus Shock Foster and unification fight, because these are the fights that Navarrete needs to be in. I don't want to see him go into these fights to where, all right, guys don't want to fight him anymore. Guys don't want to fight him after that performance. It's not going to happen.
He's an active fighter.
Don't call this crazy, but a fight that I wish would have happened at 130. I know it was discussed when Shakur was there, and Shakur versus Navarrete could have happened. I would have loved to have seen that fight. I would have loved to have seen what Shakur can do with that style. And I don't think it's out of the question that would have been a competitive fight.
I think it's a competitive fight now. And I'm telling you right now, most people that are going to pick Shakur, you're doing it because he fights in a more conventional manner. That's what we're used to seeing. That's what we call boxing, right? But at the end of the day, you cannot prepare for that. There's nobody you could spar for that. No. You cannot watch film for that because he makes it up as he goes in the middle of the ring, depending on what you do. You don't move the same way Valdez moves, so he's not going to do things the same way. That's what's tricky about this dude. And I'll tell you right now, I know Liam Wilson wants the rematch. Liam Wilson cannot beat Navarrete. Liam Wilson had a big moment.
That's a rematch you can do right there.
Yeah, I would rather see that rematch than the Valdez one, but I want to see it. I think Navarrete needs to show everybody that there's separation there. Like I think he needs to clear any doubt that there might be. Shout out to the Australian fans out there. I know a lot of you want to see the rematch, and a lot of them are confident that he could win, but
that's a hell of a feat that he pulled off, hurting him like that.
And you know what's crazy, Calix, is that, like, do you remember how confident I was that he was going to give Navarrete a good fight?
Yeah.
And he did. And I was even more confident that Valdez was going to win, and he didn't. I mean, it is what it is, but the one thing Liam Wilson has, he's bigger than Navarrete, bro. Like, he's a big dude.
He fights next week, so they're on the same timeline too.
So if you want to keep Navarrete busy, there you go. That's a fight to do. They want it. Navarrete, I believe, will fight anybody, right? And one thing, Calix, if Navarrete is that guy, if he doesn't get the big fight, he's going to keep fighting. That's what he's done his whole career. He stays active.
Stay active. Rhythm fighter. It's better if he fights a lot, and once he gets in the rhythm, it's pretty much over in a fight once he gets in the rhythm. I appreciate the poll. 59% say I'm back on the bandwagon, so I'm back on the Navarrete bandwagon. It's official.
You gotta celebrate.
I'm
Feliz
Navarrete.
Feliz
Navarrete.
Feliz
Navarrete.
Próspero año y felicidad.
Feliz Navarrete. I am back on the bandwagon. And I just want to finish off a couple of thoughts, and then I'll kick it to you to end it off. I was glad that, we didn't get the 50-50 type of fight that we maybe expected or wanted or something like that. and there was clear separation between the two to where we're not demanding a rematch. It was one of those fights, right? It's not the fight of the year type of fight maybe we expected or were hoping for. But at the same time, Valdez did have his moments. Valdez still showed that he belonged in a fight like this. And I like when people get out of something what they want. Everybody I talked to who went to this fight just had a blast and enjoyed it. And I don't want to, I don't want to see people too critical and too nerdy. And you know how people get like the wine sipping internet boxing fans that say, oh, Valdez, you know, he was exposed, stuff like that. I appreciate Valdez that he had a lot of heart in this fight, fought through the injury of the eye, was still looking for a way to win, even when it looked bad for him. So I appreciate that from Valdez, but the fighter of the night was Navarrete. It's just, to me, I love when I'm surprised. This sport becomes too WWE-ish to where it's easy to pick fights. And I actually like when I'm wrong about fights, when it's, you know, I picked this guy and I'm watching the fight and I can clearly see in round 2, Valdez looks way too tense. That knockout that I thought was coming is not coming. It's not happening. It's not happening. I love when something happens to where Navarrete goes in there and surprises me. And this guy is even better than I thought. This guy maybe belongs on the pound for pound list. This guy is going to be a problem for anybody. I love when I get a surprise like that. We got it with Crawford Spence as well. Nobody expected a beatdown like that, a one-sided beatdown. And I like when I'm surprised. And boxing rarely does it, but I like surprising fights and results. And we got that. There's no problem with being wrong about
this is why they fight the fight. This is why we don't do fictional matchups. This is why we need to see the fights. This is why we need the best to fight the best, because shit happens. Okay? One more thing, though, just really quick.
Mm-hmm.
For the dude on Twitter that told me that Navarrete would beat Salvador Sanchez, no, sorry. Hell no. Kidding me?
But maybe Barrera Morales, right?
No, I would listen carefully to what I said. I said I want to say Barrera Morales would win, and I would favor them to win, but I'm just saying, the dude is so awkward, bro. Like it's hard to gauge him, you know. But I do think though, those guys were great fighters, and I do think they would figure out a way to win.
Yeah, I agree. On that note, where are we at tomorrow night? What time around?
Yeah, it's somewhere around like the 7 p.m. Eastern, more or less. Just stay tuned, guys. We'll go live, and not sure if it'll be a podcast or just live. I'll let you guys know, and we'll keep you guys in touch and all that, man. I have a lot of catching up to do with some of the fights. I haven't watched all of them, so it is what it is. Shout out to Christina Cruz. I did see her fight. She what a pretty lopsided decision, and looking to get a title shot soon. Shout out to her.
And Derek Chisora needs to retire. He's going to fight 3 more fights. I want to add that Derek Chisora needs to retire.
That's one of the fights I haven't seen. So that's what it is.
Yeah. No, don't even subject yourself to it. But we out. God bless everybody. Have a great Monday. Peace.